Fear can completely paralyze us, but here's something strange. Much of the fear we experience is about things that aren't actually happening. Let's try a quick exercise. Think of something minor that causes fear. Bring it to your mind for a moment. Notice how your body reacts. Maybe there is tension or unease. Now, the situation you're afraid of is not happening right now. It may be something from the past that you're remembering or something you're imagining happening in the future. But the fear itself is being felt right now. This reveals something important. Much of our psychological fear comes from the mind projecting past experiences into the future and imagining what might go wrong. In other words, the fear is in the present, but the situation exists only in our imagination. Let's take some examples. You're talking to someone and suddenly you get the feeling they might not like you. That feeling is simply feedback. That by itself isn't frightening, but then the mind starts creating stories. What if they think I'm boring? What if they tell others about it? Now, these future images cause fear, and suddenly you are trying too hard to win their approval. So, a projected future creates fear in the present and makes you react to avoid something that isn't even happening. Now, compare this with physical fear. Physical fear is easier to identify because it happens in response to a real event. For example, you're trying to cross the street and suddenly a car speeds by. You instinctively step back, your heart races, and the body reacts automatically. In that moment, you're not analyzing the situation, you are dealing with it. You may not even be aware that there is fear. Your senses are alert, adrenaline kicks in, and you respond instantly. At the physical level, the event is over. Afterward, the mind may replay it and label it as fear. Later, you may even fall into the trap of converting that physical fear into psychological fear by imagining it happening again. The mind may think, what if I hadn't noticed the car in time? What if something like that happens again? The mind begins projecting the event into the future and the fear returns, even though nothing dangerous is happening right now. This can also happen after traumatic experiences. For example, in conditions like post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, the mind repeatedly relives past trauma and anticipates it happening again. You can see this pattern in many areas of life. Some other examples: financial stress often triggers thoughts like, how will I manage my expenses? What if I can't pay my bills? Or in relationships, uncertainty can lead to fears like, what if I end up alone? What if this relationship doesn't work out? Even something like public speaking works this way. The fear isn't the act of speaking itself, it's imagining embarrassment or failure. Psychological fear is insidious because the mind can endlessly imagine worst case scenarios. We end up paying the emotional price for events that may never happen. This can trigger real physical reactions: stress, shallow breathing, panic, and clouded thinking, even though the threat exists only in the mind. Now, an important point: this does not mean ignoring real risks. Life has genuine challenges and it's wise to prepare for them. But there is a big difference between planning and endless worrying. Planning focuses on real actions. Plan for the future, but make sure you stay with facts and not fall into psychological traps. If you're worried about finances, planning might mean applying for jobs, reducing expenses, or seeking support. In relationships, it might mean having honest conversations or setting clear boundaries. These responses prepare you for real situations. But getting stuck in mental narratives like, I might end up on the streets, I'll be forever alone, I am unlovable, only feed fear and helplessness. So examine where fear is draining your energy. There is no blame, all of us do this. Also, we need some fear in our life because it helps us recognize real risk and respond to danger. But the key difference between healthy caution and being controlled by fear is this. Notice when mind jumps into imagined future scenarios and ask yourself, is this realistic or am I exaggerating the threat? When you see this pattern clearly, you can begin separating imagination from reality. Unpleasant events can happen, that's part of life. It makes sense to prepare when you can. But if we constantly fear everything that might go wrong, we end up missing the life that is actually unfolding right now. Plan realistically for the future, but as much as possible, live in the present because that's where life is happening and that's where freedom lies. Thanks for watching.